we're going into the US. And I'm saying, well, you might as well say you're going into the moon.
From classroom to consultant, Katie Harrison knows a thing or two about education. But what she needed help with was taking her business, PictureNews, to the next level.
It's almost who should our next employee be and where should we be kind of channeling our time and focus to grow.
So have you narrowed down where you want to be?
So there's a few places that we think would be good places to start. We've had a little bit of interest from Malaysia and Greece.
So you've had interest from Malaysia and Greece, and it'd be very tempting to think, well, we've had interest from them, so that's where we need to go. But what you need to do is think, what's your most likely? What is the next market that you're most likely to be able to connect with and support? Because that's your worry. Your worry is that you will actually, somebody else will do it over there and you have no control. And suddenly your brand, everything you do is going to be diluted. So I think the first thing you need to do is imagine what growth looks like, the pathway in terms of growth. So where would my ideal country be first, rather than responding just to somebody who might have simply through luck have found you. That might just be it. So work out your pathway. That would be my first thing, I would say. And I think you probably need to find a partner in country. They'll know the language, they'll know the idiosyncrasies, because your product actually will look slightly different in each country. It might use a slightly different language. News might be consumed in a slightly different way. So I think it's really helpful to have somebody, whether that's a business partner, whether that's somebody who just works alongside you, whether it's a consultant, but can actually help you find your way through the idiosyncrasies of local markets. Because I promise you, the amount of people have said to me, we're going into the US, and I'm saying, well, you might as well say you're going into the moon. It's so different to the way we go to the UK. You're nodding, Katia. It's very, very different. So I think finding somebody to help you, guide you through that. Also, in this instance, take one step. If you try to deal with a lot of countries, you're going to make a lot of errors. So I would try the first one, learn what your errors are going to be, learn the sensitivities, and then you can actually roll out, because you'll have a lot more knowledge once you've had experience of that first market.
Yeah, thank you. It's really helpful.
And of course, NESCAFÉ are an international brand, so you're in international markets. What would you add to what Deborah said?
Yeah, we do operate in 180 markets. But you know what? I fully agree and with Deborah. But at the same time, I'd like to flip it on the other side and think, who is going to be interested in coming to the UK? So, for example, let's say you identified Dubai or United Arab Emirates as your target market. Can you connect with Al Jazeera and say, actually, I want to take some of your news and bring it into the UK, because they will be highly interested. And actually, that would be bringing the widest breadth of news to the British kids. And that's, I would say that's highly important for their development in the future, to have the breadth. In the same time, you might get a partner and the support and potentially an investment. So look at who is interested to come to the UK, and vice versa. That would be your potential market.
Yeah, thank you. That's really interesting. Yeah, thank you.
Can you imagine what the fully grown business is? Could you describe it to me?
Yes. So at the moment, we are in about 1 in 4 UK primary schools. I envisage that we will be in around half within the next kind of 5 to 8 years. So I can fully imagine our UK business and essentially being a household name in the sector.
You're right. You're thinking about the right things, which is, who do I need? Yours is very much a people business, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and I expect there's also a bit of anxiety around you letting go. The more people there are, how do I make sure that they are the right people? You do need an entire, and you must have it at the moment, but an entire training and cultural and standards department. There's often too much focus on, I can do that. There's less focus on, do you feel it? Do you care about it? Because I think that's what you're you're keen to hold on to, and you're right to do so. So I think, you know, you need to make sure that it doesn't become a tick box. You know, you get people in going, yeah, they're doing that, that's completely fine. But there is a way of actually divulging your culture, you know, sharing your culture. So the other tip I would give you, because I do actually use bonuses within some of my businesses, you know, so I will say, but bonuses for me are not about profit. I think they're the worst kind of bonus you can possibly come up with, is one that just says at the end of the day, that's the bottom line. If you are going to reward through a bonus, make sure that the bonus is driving those changes. So I only, when I think about my holiday parks, and I was dealing with 150,000 people on site a year, so customer care was really important, 10% was on profit. 90% was on customer service, empathy, you know, customer, it was all about the customer. Well, actually, it wasn't all about the customer. It was all about the customer and all about how they were working with each other. Because if that's not working well, you know, if the team isn't working well, then it doesn't flow through to the customer.
What kind of things do you measure for targets?
So for me, I would use things like the customer surveys. I would use interviews with the people who are working alongside them, because everybody has a different view. You know, you stand in and they might interview really well, and you think these people are absolutely brilliant, and then you have somebody working with them who will say they're a nightmare. You know, so interview. You've got to ask the questions around to establish. You know what's important to your business. You know what's important to you in delivering the business, and make sure that you get those into any kind of reward that you're going to give people.
Katia, what would your advice be?
And again, I just would like to flip your view on your business, because sometimes what we have, we don't appreciate what is already on our hands. You have access to thousands of schools in the UK. So think, who are the companies who can be interested in getting their message to schools, which is very much aligned with what you want to deliver. So let's say, for example, secondary schools, they have a very clear objectives to deliver career talks to their students and support their students with choices. Companies like Nestlé and different industries have a very strong interest in terms of sharing how to grow their careers. So you can connect these two industries, and companies would invest into you to make these connections.
Thanks to our experts for sharing their advice and their insights. If you'd like further tips on business growth, then visit nestleprofessional.co.uk.